Hi everyone, I want to discuss the meaning of type 1 error and type 2 error. First of all, what is type 1 error? The type 1 error essentially is rejecting the null hypothesis when it is actually true. And the type 2 error essentially is accepting the null hypothesis when it is actually false. It may seem like a very straightforward, but I believe many people confuse about these two concepts. In stats, we always argue that type 1 error is more severe. In other words, we try to avoid to make this type 1 error. Why? I want to let you to think about the situation while that you actually work as the judge, and sitting before you is the defendant. And we essentially made, during the trial, we made this hypothesis. That is, we assume this person is innocent unless we prove otherwise. So the law hypothesis essentially this person is innocent, and the alternative hypothesis essentially is this person is guilty. And so let's think of this now, the type 1 error in this situation. The type 1 error essentially says that, okay, in truth, this person is innocent. However, maybe by mistake, because you accidentally collect some maybe sample or something like that, and basically the jury found out this person is guilty. And so you can see the consequence of this mistake. Okay, typically this will happen during a trial in criminal court, and this person essentially is innocent, yet you found this person is guilty, and so you sent this person to years of jail or even receive capital punishment. So you can see this type 1 error is very severe. Let's think of this type 2 error in this situation. Type 2 error in this example essentially says, okay, this person essentially is in fact commit this crime. However, we don't have sufficient evidence to prove that. So type 2 error essentially is that we let the criminal go for free because we don't have sufficient evidence. Yes, we made a mistake. However, this mistake is acceptable because we rather to basically find out this person is we rather to actually not to um, basically find someone is guilty and yet this person is innocent. All right, we can set this person for free. Maybe hopefully we can catch them in next time. So this one we still maintain. In other words, if you commit type 2 error, we still maintain the fairness in the criminal system. And so that's the idea behind type 1 and type 2 error. Why type 1 error, type 1 error is more severe. Now, because type 1 error is more severe, so instead we always want to make sure that we limit the chance to make that mistakes. So that essentially associated with the level of significance. So for instance, you want to set up type 1 error which is alpha equals to 0.05. In other words, you want to limit the mistake in type 1 error to 5%. The maximum, which is still acceptable in stats, is 0.10. In other words, type 1 error is 10%. And if you think of this question is very critical, so by making this mistake the consequences very severe. In that case, you want to limit the alpha or level of significance to about like 1%, or in other words, alpha equals to 0.01. So that's the meaning of type 1 and type 2 error. Continue to discuss about the logic behind the law hypothesis in the next video. Thank you for watching.